Dear students, today we are going to learn one more topic from endocrine system, that is the hormones from pancreas. Okay, so let's start with the learning outcomes of today's lecture. So learning outcomes for today's lecture will include recognition of shape, structure and location of pancreas, understanding of the histological features of pancreas, summary of the actions of various pancreatic hormones. Then we'll go for the details of insulin, and that will include illustration of biosynthesis, mechanism of action, physiological effects, and how the release of the insulin is controlled. Finally, we'll discuss uh, abnormalities related with the insulin secretion. Okay, so let's start with the first one, that is the morphological characteristic of the insulin. So it's basically a soft, elongated and lobulated organ, right? So pancreas as such, in Latin terminology it is referred as a pan refers to all, and creas refers to flesh, right? So it's all flesh, right? That is all soft, and that from that the name, right, has been derived, right? That is the etymology of pancreas, right? As you all know that it is located between the limbs of a U-shaped structure of intestine. You can also call it a C-shaped structure, right? C or a U-shaped structure, that is called as a duodenum, right? First part of the uh, small intestine, that is duodenum. So here it is, you can just see that this is the initial part of small intestine, C-shaped or a U-shaped structure, and in between that you just find this structure which we refer as a pancreas. Pancreas is, we know that, is a mixed type of a gland which is having both exocrine as well as endocrine part, and exocrine secretions are released by a duct, right? You know that exo refers to outside, crine refers to release. So secretions are always released through a duct, but this duct is having a combined structure with the hepatic duct, right? So this is a common bile duct which is received from, you can say that, cystic duct and this hepatic duct, right? You can just see that this is a common bile duct. This eventually gets merged with pancreatic duct, and that becomes, right, it finally it becomes hepatopancreatic duct. So hepato refers to liver and pancreatic refers to the secretions of the pancreas. These secretions, combined exocrine secretions of liver and pancreas, are released by this duct, hepatopancreatic duct, which are guarded by sphincter of Oddi, and they are poured in duodenum. Fine. So these are morphological features which are related to the pancreas. It is very important to note here that this is it is very important to note here that it is an accessory digestive gland. What do we mean by this? Accessory digestive gland means, or accessory digestive structure refers to the structures which are present in the digestive system, but then food never comes into contact of these digestive organs. Okay, so say for example salivary glands, liver, pancreas, these are accessory structures present in the gastrointestinal tract, right? But definitely, even though food does not pass through this structure, they do help in digestion, and that's why we call it as an accessory gland, right? Largest gland, right? Largest accessory digestive gland is liver. Pancreas is second largest structure, right, as far as the accessory digestive structures are concerned. Fine. So this is related to the anatomical characteristic, right? So now we are moving towards the type of gland. as we have discussed, right, it is compound, mixed, or composite, right? You can call it as a composite, right, or a compound or mixed, because it is having both types of secretion, that is exocrine and endocrine. Exocrine, that is pancreatic juice, as we have discussed in the earlier diagram, right? It releases a juice which helps in the digestion, and this juice is basic in nature, alkaline in nature, right? It contains few enzymes which are zymogens, right? Say for example, for protein digestion, there are trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, and procarboxypeptidase, right? Similarly, lipase, pancreatic amylase, right, nucleases, right? These are some of the enzymes which are present and help in the digestion of various components present in the uh, uh, you guess that chyme that is uh, derived from the digestion, right, in stomach. Okay. Moving towards the major part, which is of today's topic, right? That is topic of interest for today's lecture. That is endocrine secretion, and you just see that there are 5 hormones, right, which we are going to check in the next slides one by one. So because it is both exocrine as well as endocrine, that's why you call either as a compound or a mixed or a composite gland, right? So 50-50 importance that you can consider, right? There are many structures in human body which have both type of secretion, like exocrine and endocrine. But then if it comes to a very good example of a mixed gland, then definitely your first answer should be pancreas. Okay, say for example, liver is mainly exocrine because it releases bile juice. Is also endocrine because it releases insulin like growth factor. But then liver is not typically been discussed as an example of mixed gland. Okay, it is largely considered as an exocrine gland only. Fine. Moving towards the histological features, right? Internal structure, internal anatomy of the pancreas. So there are two types of cells. One cells, first one, major one, they are called as a Purkinje cells. Okay, and second is pancreatic islets, right? That is islet of Langerhans. Purkinje cells are the major one, and that is 98 to 99% of the cells of pancreas are of such type, right? They are arranged in the clusters and they produces digestive enzymes, and that is via the network of ducts. The small ducts finally get combined into large pancreatic duct with along with the common bile duct creates a hepatopancreatic duct and release in the duodenum. Pancreatic islets were first found by scientist Langerhans in 1969, and to give credit to this scientist, we call it as an islet of Langerhans. Islet of Langerhans only represents 1 to 2% of tiny clusters which are scattered amongst these a large group of cells, exocrine acinar cells. Okay, but then they are, you can say that, highly vascularized, right? So blood vessel, plenty of blood vessel is found around the pancreatic islets. That is a very important anatomical characteristic of these cells. It is heterocrine, that means these cells, further pancreatic islets, they are having 5 different type of secreting cells, hormone secreting cells, right? Because they are of different type, that's why we call it as a heterocrine structure. Okay, so this heterocrine structure is made up of 5 different cells. Major quantity is of the beta cells, 60% of the total cell, right? They are pancreatic beta cells. 30 cells are your alpha cells, and then rest of the 10% includes delta, epsilon, and gamma or F cells, right? They are also referred as a PP cells because they release this pancreatic polypeptide, right? Again, checking the diagram, right? You can just see that this is the part of the digestive system where pancreas is located, just beneath stomach, right? Here the C-shaped structure, you can just see that, right? Duodenum, and that's where in between that duodenal part, a pink, soft, elongated, lobulated structure you can locate, right? Histologically, it is made up of 2 cells. The large quantity that you can just see that is acinar cells, exocrine part, and they secretes zymogen. Zymogen refers to inactive enzymes, right? Because say for example we say procarboxypeptidase, so it is inactive, gets converted to carboxypeptidase, which is active. Fine. So in short, it is zymogen, right? Now in between this, you can say that acinar cells, you find some tiny clusters, and those tiny clusters are referred as a islet of Langerhans. So there you can just see that 3 cells have been mentioned here, but actually as we have discussed, there are 5 types. Large quantity that we have already discussed, 60% of the pancreatic islet cells are comprising of beta cells, which is again a very important topic to be discussed in this lecture, because beta cells are releasing a major hormone of pancreas, that is insulin, right? 30% of the pancreatic beta islet cells, pancreatic islet cells are alpha cells, and they releases glucagon. Now here it is very important to note that insulin is blood sugar lowering hormone, right? That means it reduces the level of glucose in the blood. Glucagon is having exactly opposite action, that is it increases the blood sugar level, and that's why you can consider these two hormones as antagonistic hormones. Antagonistic hormones means the hormones which opposes action of each other, right? That is what we call as a antagonistic hormone. So both are antagonizing in each other, but level of both insulin and glucagon are important to maintain overall homeostasis, equilibrium, and maintenance of the blood glucose level. Okay, and that function is performed by these cells: delta cell, which releases somatostatin. So somatostatin is a hormone, right? As you can just see that statica, that is stop, right? Stagnant. In refers to, because it is peptide, that's why we call it as in, right? And somato, that is soma refers to body cells, so it inhibits the cells, right? Body cells, but here it is alpha cells and beta cell. So because these two are opposite in nature, right? If insulin over released may cause decrease in blood sugar level. If glucagon is released in more amount, then it will lead to increase in blood sugar level. So activities of alpha cell and beta cells are under control of this delta cell, and that is through this somatostatin, right? Again important to note, somatostatin is released also from brain, that is from hypothalamus, that we commonly refer as a growth hormone, inhibitory hormone, right? As well as it also gets released from in a minor quantity from stomach also, right? So there are multiple sources of somatostatin in our body, right? Primary source is in brain, that is hypothalamus, and delta cells of the pancreatic islets. Okay, apart from that, you also have epsilon cells, and that releases ghrelin. Ghrelin is a major hormone from stomach, but a minor quantity of ghrelin gets released from small intestine and from the pancreas. It is referred as a hunger hormone, that means it increases appetite. Also, that it is important in the actions which are relevant to the fat storage, right? So ghrelin is relevant with that function. Finally, fifth one is gamma cells. Gamma cells or F cells, PP cells, they releases pancreatic polypeptide, and this pancreatic polypeptide is important for the again appetite, right? As well as few of the intestinal action, but it's a doubtable sort of an it's a discussable or debatable type of an physiological effects, right? So we'll not go in the details of pancreatic details, right? For uh, our syllabus, our curriculum, major discussion will be for insulin and for glucagon. Glucagon we'll discuss side by side when we'll discuss insulin. Most of the actions are opposite to insulin, right? So this is regarding the anatomical characteristic of the pancreas and pancreatic islets, right? That we have discussed, right? We'll like to revise. There are 5 cells, right, which are present in the pancreatic islets. That's why we call it as a heterocrine, right? Can you name these cells which are present in the pancreas? Yes, very good. alpha cells. The major secretion from alpha cell is it is glucagon, right? Second is beta cell that releases insulin. Delta cell, very good, it is somatostatin. Epsilon, that is ghrelin. And finally gamma cells, that is your pancreatic polypeptide, right? Gamma cells or F cells, that is pancreatic polypeptide, right? So now we are starting with the discussion of insulin. Insulin was discovered 1921 by Benting and Best. They performed some experiment on dog and they found that there is some hormone from pancreas, right, which is lowering the blood sugar level, right? And that's how the discovery was made. Even uh, Benting and MacLeod, they received Nobel Prize for this discovery and for this important experiment, right? So very important hormone, right? It's basically composed of two chain, right? So it's a polypeptide, and these chains are having 51 amino acids, right? Molecular weight is somewhere around 6000 Dalton. So these two chains are A chain and B chain. The terminology, because it is acidic, that's why it is A chain, and basic, that's why B chain, right? So A chain is made up of 21 amino acid, B chain is made up of 30. So 21 plus 30, total 51 amino acid. These two chains are linked by two disulfide bridges, and these disulfide bridges are very important for their action. If by chance these disulfide bridges get broken down, then the activity of insulin gets zero, right? Because it is peptide in nature, that's why even say for example when we consider for medicine, oral administration of insulin is not possible as such, because it is peptide in nature, it will get destroyed in the gastric pH. And this is because in acidic pH these disulfide bridges get very easily lysed. Okay, so this is nowadays, definitely there are some formulations for oral insulin also available, but that details you will get in the higher semester. Okay, moving towards the biosynthesis of the insulin, right? So it is synthesized and stored in the pancreatic beta cell, right? So it does not happen like that. Whenever there is an increase in blood sugar level, then your beta cells start synthesizing you can say that insulin, right? It is already having storage of beta, already having storage of insulin, right? So this is your major kitchen, right, for the synthesis of insulin. So precursor, major peptide is a pre-pro insulin. You can just see that large sequence which is having uh, A chain, B chain, C chain, and finally a single sequence at the N terminal site. Okay, normally a peptide has two terminal, that is N terminal and C terminal. So this is a long structure. After this structure is being produced by your ribosomal factory, then eventually initially the single sequence is removed, which leads to synthesis of proinsulin. And finally this proinsulin, that again a C peptide gets removed, and this removal of C peptide then finally leads to synthesis of insulin. Okay, so this basically happens in the Golgi apparatus, okay, of your beta cells. And this insulin and C peptide both are released simultaneously from the pancreatic beta cell through exocytosis, wherever the blood glucose level is more than 120 milligram per dl. Okay, so it is a sensory mechanism by which pancreatic beta cell releases the insulin and C peptide, which is already synthesized, right, pre-synthesized and stored in their secretory vesicles. Okay, if you are not able to remember the details at the level of second semester BPharm, just remember that the precursor is pre-proinsulin, which gets converted to proinsulin, finally gets converted to insulin and C peptide. Right, C peptide is easy to remember because you already know that there are A chain and B chain. So there is one more chain, C chain. This importance of C peptide also you will learn in the higher semester, right? Wherever you learn the pharmacology of the pancreatic hormones. Okay, so this is initially 111 amino acids, from where 24 amino acids are removed, and finally it leads to synthesis of insulin, which is having the 51 amino acid structure. Okay, so synthesis is quite complicated, but we have tried to simplify it. Moving towards the another important segment, that is mechanism of action. Now, as we have discussed in very initial lectures of the hormones, that hormones are basically of two types with regard to their mechanism of action. One, which are water soluble and thus they act on the cell surface. Second, which are lipid soluble and thus they are able to enter the cell membrane and they are able to activate either cytosolic or nuclear receptors. Okay, so insulin being a peptide structure, it's a protein, right? So protein definitely are water soluble, they are not able to cross the cell membrane, so they will act on the receptors which are present on the cell surface. These receptors are typically specific insulin receptors, which are a type of type 3, that is tyrosine kinase linked receptor. Now, here you may not be knowing the types of receptor, but just I will briefly highlight the types of receptor. There are 4 types of receptor: type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. Type 4 are nuclear receptor. You must be knowing, we have discussed thyroid hormones, and in that nuclear receptors we have discussed, yes, they were type 4. Rest of the 3, that is type 1, type 2, and type 3, they are located on the cell membrane. They are cell surface receptors. And type 3 receptors are specifically activated by majorly 2 group, right, which is growth factors, and then one more is your insulin, right? So because these receptors, they are linked with an enzyme, that enzyme is tyrosine kinase, that's why we call it as a tyrosine kinase linked receptor, or they are also referred as a tyrosine kinase enzyme linked receptor. So here is the structure. You don't need to go for the details of the structure, but the details of what I'm showing here, that you try to learn. You can just see that these are 2 subunits, alpha and beta, and here is where your insulin is binding, right? So once insulin bind, it leads to activation of some receptor substrate, right? This is called as a insulin receptor substrate. They are already present in the cytoplasm, but with binding of insulin, they get converted to active stage. Once these are active, they activate many sequences, right? And that case primarily of our interest here again is PI3K, that is phosphatidyl inositol 3 kinase. This kinase is once been active, this leads to translocation of a very important carrier protein, right? Remember that glucose entry in a cell is restricted, right? That means glucose is present in the blood but cannot enter in cell without binding of insulin to this receptor. This is of prime importance in the cells where the energy regulation is considered. Say for example, cells of skeletal muscle, you require high energy, right? Energy demand is very high. Similarly, cells of adipose tissue, extra energy gets converted to fat. So these cells, adipose tissue, skeletal muscle, they expresses a transporter, right? That transporter is called as a GLUT. GLU refers to glucose, T refers to transporter. There are various subtypes of GLUT, and here I have shown GLUT4. Okay, so GLUT4 is present in the cytoplasm, but that needs to be sent to this membrane, your cell membrane. Then and then glucose will come and then will get entry inside the cell. Without GLUT4, it will not enter inside the cell. Why glucose cannot enter inside the cell? Because again it is water soluble in nature. So small molecule like glucose, which are water soluble in nature, right? Definitely polarity does not allow entry into the cell membrane, and for their entry you would need some carrier molecules, carrier transporters. That carrier transporters are GLUT4. The translocation of GLUT4 is stimulated by the action of insulin. This is the major mechanism of action. Okay, apart from the glucose homeostasis, there are various other effects also, that is produced by RAS, RAF, MAC kinase pathways which lead to gene transcription, and that leads to variety of physiological effects which we are going to discuss in the next slides. So major effects of insulin, physiological effects of insulin. There are three target cells which we are going to discuss in today's lecture, that is muscle, adipocyte and liver, right? These three we are considering because they are major effector cells of insulin. Insulin definitely produces action in all body cells, but then primary important for us because muscle, you need a very high amount of energy, right, for muscular activity, continuous requirement for energy. Adipocyte, as I told you, site for the major metabolism of lipid, right, extra energy, extra carbohydrates get converted to fat here. And finally you have liver, which is the metabolic center of the body. The physiological actions which are shown in this slide, wherever been shown by green arrow, they are stimulated by insulin. Wherever they are shown by red arrow, they are inhibited by insulin. Okay, so wherever released, insulin stimulates release of glucose entry, right, in the cells. This is, as we have discussed, by translocation, stimulation of a process which you call as a translocation. Translocation means just movement of GLUT carrier proteins from cytoplasm to cell membrane. Once in cell membrane, they will allow glucose to enter inside the cell, right? So this is very important for entry. Once been entered, this glucose will get converted to glucose 6-phosphate. Finally, glucose 6-phosphate, right, will get converted to glycogen. So this is the storage form of the carbohydrate in the human, right, in the mammalian, right? So glucose get converted to glycogen. So this is called as a glycogenesis, right? So glycogenesis is stimulated, right? So glycogenesis, that means formation of the glycogen from glucose, but reverse is inhibited, as you can see that by red arrow, right? So this is inhibited by insulin. So glycogenolysis, lysis refers to breakdown, and glycogeno, that is glycogen. So the reverse process, that is formation of glucose from glycogen, will be inhibited by the presence of insulin. Okay, similarly this glucose can also be utilized by the glycolytic pathway. So overall, the utilization of glucose in ATP or extra glucose that is converted to glycogen, these processes are stimulated by insulin in muscles. Similar anabolic effects for amino acids also you can consider, right? Remember that overall metabolic effect of insulin are relevant with the anabolism, right? Anabolism means small molecules will converted to macromolecule, right? So amino acids active entry is been stimulated, and once been entered into the cell, their conversion into proteins will be stimulated, while proteolysis is inhibited, catabolic process is inhibited, anabolic process is stimulated. Okay, similarly in adipocytes, glucose once been entered, it entry will be stimulated, and then finally the anabolic process, right, lipogenic pathway, right, will be stimulated, but catabolism of the fat will be inhibited, that means lipolysis is inhibited. Okay, so overall effect of insulin on glucose in adipocyte is lipogenic effect. It will stimulate the conversion of glucose into fatty acids, right? Also it will allow the triglycerides, right, to be uptaken, right? Fatty acids, monoglyceride been taken and converted to large fatty acids. So anabolism of lipids you can just consider, right, for insulin. Finally, hepatocytes, which are cells present in liver, here also glucose entry is stimulated, right? Here the uh, uh, expression is not of GLUT4, so here it is not prominent effect as you have seen what in case of muscles and adipose tissue, adipocytes, but you can just see that once been entered, once glucose is entered in the cell, then you can just see that the glycogenesis is stimulated and glycogenolysis is inhibited, right? Catabolic processes are inhibited. One more important thing is this glucose 6-phosphate also gets converted into fatty acid in the liver. So just like adipocyte, the lipogenic effect are stimulated. But there is one more pathway which is existent in the liver, that is ketogenic pathway. This ketogenic pathway involves conversion of this acetyl CoA and the other metabolites into ketone bodies. This is inhibited in presence of insulin, right? Now this we can understand by an example. Say for example, a person is on hunger strike, right? You can consider a few politicians, right? Or maybe a religious fast. So in that case, initially your storage of glucose once been depleted, your body converts glycogen into glucose, right? And then finally once this glycogen also is been depleted, then body start converting your lipids into glucose, and then finally activates this ketogenic pathway. And that's why wherever these politicians, or maybe say for example wherever you are on fasting, then the medical status, right, normally they releases a medical bulletin for politician that their ketone bodies in blood are higher, right? Ketone bodies in urea are higher. That is what, right? That is activation of ketogenic pathway, right? Because as an alternative to glucose, body tries to find energy from such sources, which is harmful, right? Ketone bodies, if they are excessively synthesized, right, definitely they are acidic in nature, and they can produce a state which we call as a ketoacidosis, right? Cis refers to process, acido refers to acidity, that is metabolic acidosis, and ketone, that's why ketoacidosis. Okay, but because insulin is present here, definitely these ketogenic pathways are absent. In absence of insulin, right, wherever there is a lack of insulin, like say for example diabetes mellitus, especially type 1, then this ketogenic pathway will be activated because there is lack of insulin. Such a case, it may provoke diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a medical emergency situation. Okay, so summarizing the effects of physiological effects of the insulin, most rapid action includes the stimulation of translocation of GLUT4, and that's why increased uptake of glucose, not only glucose, also amino acids and potassium. Now here we are not going to get in details of potassium, but that also is a very important action, and for that action insulin can also be used as a medicine in conditions of hyperkalemia. Hyper refers to increase, kale refers to potassium, amia refers to blood, right? But then definitely uptake of glucose, amino acids, potassium will be increased in the cell. This is within seconds, because the once insulin receptor is active, it very fastly it activates insulin receptor substrate, and that do not require time. Once it is active, it allows the translocation of GLUT4 and other carrier proteins, which allows either single entry of glucose or sometime co-transportation of some of these substances along with the glucose, and that's why rapid action. Intermediate action, right, within few minutes, it may increase the protein synthesis. Anabolic action, and it decreases catabolism. You can just see that. Similarly, activation of glycolytic enzymes, so the utilization of glucose is increased, as well as glycogen synthase enzyme. So once glycogen synthase enzyme is more glucose can be converted into glycogen. Finally, it inhibits the catabolic process, that means phosphorylasis and gluconeogenic enzymes, right? Gluco refers to glucose, neo refers to new, and genic, that is genesis refers to formation. Gluconeogenesis refers to formation of glucose from new sources, right? Now which are those new sources? Because normally glucose get from the synthesized from the glycogen, right? That is normal process, and that we refer as a glycogenolysis. That's fine. But what is gluconeogenesis is? It is formation of glucose from lipids, and sometime rarely from amino acids also, right? Here it is what I mentioned is with regard with the lipids, but then definitely gluconeogenesis is inhibited by insulin, right? So, and that's why you can just see that all these last two whatever steps, or these are all relevant with the decrease in the blood sugar level. That's why we said that insulin is a very important hormone in reducing the blood sugar level. Okay, delayed effect, right, which are through the transcription, activation of transcription by switching on some gene switch, right, that is lipogenic effects and other metabolic effects through various enzymes. That will take some hours because it is mediated by activation of gene transcription. Okay, so this is a summary of the physiological effects of insulin. Moving towards a very important topic, that how it is uh, 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 regulated, right, the release of insulin, how it has been regulated, because it's very critical, right. Glucagon and insulin both should be regulated very meticulously. Then and then the blood sugar level range is controlled, is maintained at and the level of 80 to 120 milligram per dl. Dl refers to 100 ml, right. L refers to liter and dl refers to deciliter. So this range of basal sugar level, right, that is dependent on this pancreatic beta cell, right. So insulin, as we have discussed, is released through exocytosis from pancreatic beta cell. So this cell is typically is mimicking the anatomical and functional characteristic of the sensory neurons. Yes, you heard it right, that it is mimicking, it is same like sensory neurons, because it is very rapid changes that it is able to detect. Okay, so once the glucose level is increased, right, you have some glucose transporters here also, right, which I have mentioned here. You can just see that glucose transporters, these are present on the cell membrane of the pancreatic beta cell, and these are of GLUT2 type, right. Pancreatic beta cell expresses GLUT2 type of transporters. This allows the entry of glucose in the pancreatic beta cell, right. Now this entry will only be a case when these basal values are more than 120, right. So you will in higher semester you will learn that there are some values, km values, right, which on the basis of which this GLUT2 or GLUT4 can respond. Okay, so wherever the blood sugar level are higher, glucose will get entered through these GLUT2 transporters. Once it is entered, now it will be metabolized by the machineries of the metabolic machinery of pancreatic beta cell. This will lead to increase in ATP production as well as NADPH changes. Okay, so this ratio of ATP to ADP is very important. You know that ATP is an energy currency, but then once this ATP level are increased, then it is sensed by a very important structure which is called as a potassium channel. This is a ligand gated potassium channel. That means once a ligand is bound, then and then it will open and close. So here closing mechanism is governed by the level of ATP. If ATP levels are higher, then this potassium channel gets closed, right. And these very minute structures which are present on the ion channels, they are called as ABC. ABC refers to ATP binding cassettes. So ATP binding cassettes recognizes ATP and then it closes. Once you have closure of potassium ion channel, it will lead to membrane depolarization. That means the voltage, right, that is present within a cell, that is changed now. Once there is a membrane depolarization, this is sensed by another channel, but that channel is not ligand gated, it is voltage gated. Gating mechanism here are dependent or they are sensitive to the voltage changes. So voltage gated calcium channel now gets open and this allows entry of calcium. Now you know that once calcium is there, these vesicles, right, which are present in the cells, the proteins of this membrane as well as pancreatic beta cell, that will get fused. Once it is fused, the movement of substance present in the vesicles get released outside. When it is released outside, it is exo. Cyto refers to cell, cis refers to process. That's why exocytosis. So insulin will get now released. Released insulin will act on the various effectors like skeletal muscle, adipocytes, liver cells. There it increases anabolism of glucose, it increases utilization of glucose, and it inhibits the catabolism related to glucose. Such a level, blood sugar level, again comes down to basal values. Once it is down to basal value, now there will be no glucose entering inside the cell, and now again the actions are regained, right? So this is how it is controlled. This is called as a chemical signaling mechanism for the control of release of hormone. Okay, such chemical signaling also happens in case of release of thyrocalcitonin from thyroid gland, and you can say we have learned the release of glucose from the pancreatic beta cell. Okay, this mechanism is very important. This will help you in understanding mechanism of action of some drugs like sulfonylureas, meglitinides in the higher semester, right, wherever you learn pharmacology of such anti-diabetic drug. Okay, right now this is enough, more than enough for at the level of second semester B Pharm. So we are stopping here. Next lecture we'll discuss that if insulin is absent, then what could happen, some diseases which are related with the insulin abnormal secretion abnormalities. Okay, thank you very much.